Water. So important to our survival. In the rule of threes in survival, it comes in at 3 days without water we can survive. Shouldn't be so difficult to get water, especially in this country. We're surrounded by it. But like here, not all the water is drinkable. We've got lots of sources of water here in the UK. We've got rivers, we've got streams, we've got tarns up in the hills, burns as they call them in Scotland. But it's not all clean water. It's not drinkable because it's infected. Maybe, as I'm always pointing out, there may be a dead sheep lying in the stream further up the hill. So what do we do? Well, we can buy sterilisation tablets to pop in it. We can boil it. If it's really dirty water, we can sift it through a brown bag and get the largest parts of the contaminants out before we boil it. We can even, in hot climates, use the sun on it to sterilise it. But what's more and more popular now with everybody is water filters. And I'm going to have a look after 1 year's use with the misgivings of the water filter I'm using. So let's take a walk back to my, what shall we say, holiday home. It's not really my holiday home, it's my mate's house. But yeah, I like to think of it as my holiday home. They've given me keys, you see, and they trust me to stay there on my own without setting fire to it. Although I had another friend that left me in his house, and on 2 occasions I managed to leave the freezer door open and destroy all the contents of it. And so, yeah, okay, so maybe I'm not 100% responsible, but let's take a walk back and we'll have a look at what the situation is with this particular water filter. Well, as you saw from that, finding water is not that much of a problem. Unfortunately, the water that we saw there isn't drinkable. And water does not grow on trees, although with a bit of pre-planning it can. It's still here in one piece. Oh, thank God for that. And water, we encounter it everywhere, but sometimes we don't really want to encounter it. Like when we have slips and trips. Or when we have little falls. Or when we're trying to pretend we're some sort of ninja warrior inserting onto an enemy shore. Yeah, what an idiot. All of those instances ended up with water going in there and down there somewhere. Not advisable. And so there's no point filtering water if before you do it, you're doing what I was just doing there. So what are we going to filter it with? Well, as you can see from the title, we're looking at the LifeSaver Liberty. This one, to be precise. And I've had this a year. I haven't used it that much, but it's got its limitations and I've had problems. So this is to review, an initial review. If we just have a quick look at this clip from a video I did about a year ago, you can see me unboxing the LifeSaver Liberty and just having a quick look at it, and then I took it out to give it a test. A LifeSaver, well, it says LifeSaver on it. It's actually called a LifeSaver Liberty, and It's a filter for water. And when I actually get to use it, I'll give you a lot more information about it. But your LifeSaver Liberty, it is okay, but I'm going to show you some instances when it's not okay. What you saw there was me filling up from, I don't know what we call it, a very large puddle probably. There was lots of tracks in the ground that were all full of water, and it wasn't very clean. So I thought, great, I need water, I use the filter and all will be well. And it was. I got the scavenger hose out, which is this item here, and as you saw, I pumped the water through, topped my water bottle up, and everything was fine. And there we are, just looking for the end. We'll pop that in because we're going to need it in a minute. And I did it again later that day, and it was fine again. The third time I did it, the flow of the water started to get slower and slower. And what had happened was the filter inside, which I guess I'll put that on right so we can have a look at this here. The filter inside had become clogged in such a short time. There's a pre-filter on here to keep big bits out, but the filter, and I'm being very careful not to touch this with my fingers because it's a relatively new one, and these cost around in the region of £65, and they do they say LifeSaver, they do some very good tutorial videos on their site showing you how to use this and, more important, how to maintain it. And the one thing they point out is that you know your filter has done what it can do when the flow starts to reduce. Well, mine had reduced after 3 or 4 uses, and I thought, this can't be right. But it was, and it was full of all sorts of rubbish. And long and short of it is was that I had to just put that back in there. I can't talk and think at the same time of work. My wife used to be able to. She said it was a man for not being able to do 2 things at once. So I had no choice but to revert to the old system, which I can show you. We'll take a walk and we'll go down to this little bit of a stream. I say a stream, it's a bit of a trickle of water where a pool had formed. There was no other water in the area where I was looking. Then I had to carry it back, and then I mentioned in the intro the brown bag. So here's the brown bag in question. And these used to be called a millbank bag. I think they were introduced in the Second World War, but this is a more recent one, which we refer to as I tend to refer to it as a brown bag. And you can see me using this here, and then once the water's slowly filtered through, leaving all the heavy particles in the bottom, I then have to boil it. And you've got to keep your contaminated items, so your containers you collect it in, away from your clear, uncontaminated water, otherwise it defeats the object of doing it. So that was a bit of a disaster. I had to buy the new filter at, like I said, about £65. So after that, I stuck to using it purely in relatively clean, clear water. And that could have been anywhere. I was looking for reasonably fast flowing streams or pretty clean tarns. You can see me here on this clip topping my water bottle up, and that was pretty good water. You know, looking at it, you felt like you could almost drink it straight as it was. But as we know, there's a lot of particles end up in water, a lot of viruses and things like that that you can't see. So that was its limitations on that type of work. Now, that was fine until I decided to go to the Sahara Desert. One of the things on the list of kit required was the water filter. This water filter just failed miserably for me. It came down to, I think, all the dust and sand. But after a few days, it just stopped working, so I assumed it was the filter again. I'd taken a spare filter with me, which I'd put in, and I was still struggling to get it to work. And in the end, I had to give up on it. You know, you see a clip of me here, filtering water. And another problem was, it filters too slowly. For the amount of liquid we were supposed to be putting in our bodies, it was 40 degrees plus, and we were drinking litre after litre of water. This took so long to keep filling up my containers, and I was using this one here, which I got specifically for the job. And that's another interesting thing. If you're going to get a container, you really need to take the bottle with you, he says, screwing the wrong end, knocking that over. I was distracted because there's a little pussycat down there that's come to see what all the waffle's about. That's more like it. Yes, I had a couple of containers like this, water bottles, and the threads weren't right for this particular filter, so I took the bottle with me to an outdoor shop and found the right thread for this piece of equipment. So we'll dangle that in there. And in the Sahara, the guide was collecting water from a wells. I mean, have a look here at the type of well that we were using. And he was putting it in containers, but we couldn't pour, well we could, but there was a group of us and we didn't have time for each person to be getting the big container and pouring it in. So we all were given these 5 litre water bottles, you know, your standard ones that you get at the supermarket with your expensive water in it, which makes a bit of mockery of having all these taps where it comes out of. But truth be known, the stuff that comes out of these tastes disgusting, so yeah, I can understand people buying bottled water. My problem was, this wouldn't fit in the top of it. So the idea was, you use your water, then you refill your bottle and off you go to your own little camp bit and filter it there. So what I had to do was get, as you'll see in this clip again, the container had the top cut off it, and I was just dropping that into it. Now you might think, well, why didn't you just open the filter up and pour it in? There was so much dust and sand about that I didn't want to risk the inside here just getting full of sand. As it happens, I think that's what happened. Well, when you take a look at this here, and we'll open it up. So I'm pumping away. As you can see, the water's coming through nice and clean, but it's taking forever, which is fine if you've got plenty of time. But when you're having to do this 8-10 times a day during the day, while you're on a course, you're doing training, Everybody else was going, okay, we'll top the water bottles up, minute or so and they're done, and I'm still sat there going, oh yeah, well I'll be there in a minute, just give me a minute. And we were drinking one of these, like every half hour. And there was one day when I went down with heat stroke and I had to drink even more to try and get my temperature down. So time-wise it wasn't ideal. But then, like I said, it started to fail. Now I wasn't quite sure what was wrong with it. I assumed it was the filter. I changed the filter, that's another £65 filter in it. And in the end I had to rely on other people's water filters because I just couldn't get any flow through it. The pump stopped working. I couldn't force the pump down. So I thought, right, I've got to wait while I get back to the UK and have a serious look at this. And I contacted LifeSaver and I just mentioned to them that I needed another filter and I wasn't sort of impressed with what had happened. I don't know if it was the dust and sand, and you can see from this clip here the conditions we were in a lot of the time and we're having to try and filter water. The little tent we had didn't really make a lot of difference as far as protecting you from all the sand in the air. So I came to the conclusion that maybe it wasn't the filter, maybe it was just the mechanism on here. So I brought it back to England and then I thought, right, the sensible thing to do is to get yourself a different filter. But I was curious to know what was the problem with this one. I thought about sending it back to LifeSaver, but I'm a man and I wanted to fiddle with it. So I thought, I'll do that. Fiddling. Yeah, I like fiddling. But unfortunately, I got back from the Sahara and I wasn't very well for a few days. And I only had a few days before I had to go out to the Amazon in Brazil. Nope, the jungle. So I needed the filter pretty quick. So I knew this did work, but I wasn't sure what the problem with this particular one was. So I contacted LifeSaver and said, can you get one to me as quickly as possible? So I got another one, a different colour. Not ideal if you're looking for it in the dark, but I wanted something different to the one I'd got so I didn't mix them up. So the next thing was, off we go to the Amazon jungle and we'll see what happens there next. Now if we're going to do a section on the Amazon jungle, I always like to think I've got some props to emphasise the point. And they've got jaguars, big cats, big teeth in the Amazon jungle. Well, this is the best I could find. Are you going to snarl at the camera, right? Come on, give us a snarl at the camera. No, not interested. Well, water isn't a problem in the Amazon jungle. There's plenty of it. But most of it isn't drinkable. Unless when they have a shower like this. You just like open your mouth and yeah, that should be reasonable. So again, we were filtering the water. It was over 30 degrees, 30, 32 degrees, 95% humidity. The water in here that I'm using, for example, is probably about to get contaminated because this particular animal is fascinated by water and sinks. In fact, what it's doing is he likes to lay in the bottom of the sink, but not when it's full of water. So he's probably thinking, this is his way in telling me to let the water out so he can get in. I say him, it's a she. His little name's Willow. Aren't you, little pally? You're messing my video up. I'm doing something serious here. Yeah, so some of the water you really wouldn't want to be drinking without filtering it. And the filter, the new one, using relatively clean water, it worked. And I made sure that there was no swampy water going into this. I tried to get it as clear as possible. And I had no problem with the filtration, but again, I had the problem with how fast I could filter this. So it caused a lot of delays, especially when there's maybe just one source of water. Like sometimes we'd be at a native village and they'd have a tap, and it'd be one tap, and so you'd have to come along and undo the filter, fill it up, go back, start pumping away to fill your water bottles up, and it was just a long dragged out process. So we sort of survived the Amazon with it, and I came back, and then I thought what I'll do is I'll compare the two filters and go through each piece bit by bit. And I had another brand new filter, another £65, and I took the old filter, the original one from the Amazon, and the new ones, and I kept interchanging all the parts. This one, it is now working. I still don't think fantastically, but that was after I'd washed it and rinsed it and taken all this apart here. Let's pull the plug out. I took this apart. There's a little filter in there that you're supposed to take out. I took the tube out, and I just kept rinsing it in sterilised water over and over and over, and slowly it began to work. So I think that it had got contaminated maybe in here. There's a seal around here with sand and grit. I'm not sure. I don't know what happened there. Didn't screw the top on properly. Either way, I don't think it's suitable when you want vast quantities of water. So the Sahara Desert, not for me. Amazon jungle, not for me. Walking up on the Lake District Hills, Scottish Highlands, where you won't be maybe drinking as much water as you would in them sort of climates, yeah, it's fine. Fill up a water bottle, fill this, because this is a water bottle in its own right. So what have I decided to do? Well, all the other people on both these courses, and they were survival courses, so I guess, you know, I shouldn't really have had equipment like this. Should have been collecting our water, boiling it and what have you, and using things like the brown bag. This is the Grail, a very, very popular filter. And I've been watching the other people use these, and I've only had this open once. I'm going to have to think how to use it. And this is what I ended up using in the Sahara, because that's what other people had, and it only took them a moment to get me a bottle of water. So it's just a simple matter of take that out of there, he says. Right. Now what I've done there is I've gone and twisted it the wrong way, and I untwisted the filter off the bottom and it fell off. So that's a lesson learned. I'm going to have to think about that. So try not to contaminate that filter and leave it there. But with this, all you've got to do is fill your water bottle up with water. Fill your water bottle up with water. Oh dear me, hey. I guess we could fill it up with beer if that was gone a bit cloudy. And then the idea is, I'll put the lid back on because we don't need the lid off for this. So you just poured your water in. I really like to be on the ground to do this because you've got to get a lot of pressure on here. But all you've got to do is press down like that. Now normally I'd be on the ground with my whole weight behind it. In fact, I'll show you the techniques. It's much easier. I'm pushing up here and I'm a bit of a wimp. Let's have a look. And there we have it. A whole container of fresh water in seconds. I can drink that out of here, or I could use it to top up my other bottle, this one, and then refill that, and I've got 2 containers full of it. I don't know the specifications for the filter in this one and the filter in that. From what I quickly read before I bought it, it appears to do the same job, but you'd have to research that. So, am I going to keep using this, or am I going to keep using the grill? Well, the grill is bigger and a bit more cumbersome and heavier. This is just easier to slot into your backpack. And the great thing about this one, I say the great thing because I've been sort of criticising it all the way through this, is having the scavenger hose. So you get situations where the water's difficult to get to, like just take a look at this next clip where I'm struggling to get down to a river, and once I got down there you can't quite see, but I'm on a bit of a bank and I'm trying to reach out to fill the water container. The great thing with this is you can just stand back, you can throw the scavenger hose in, and with this float you can decide how deep or how shallow you want it to float. So if the water looks a bit, got some dead flies on the top, you can drop that down into the water and it'll pick up the fresh water. And for that, I prefer this, but I'm going back to the Amazon next year and I'll definitely be taking this, not that. So I hope that's been useful to you. I'm not saying that the LifeSaver Liberty is a bad filter, it isn't, it's a good filter. But you just have to think about where you're going to use it and what you actually want out of it. And unfortunately for me, it's been a very expensive trial and error, because all 3 of these filters cost in excess of over £100, about 120. And then, as I said, is the filter 65. Now I have no idea how long the filter in this one will last under those conditions, but I do know that the group I was with, of which there was another 9 people in the Sahara, theirs survived the whole 10 days that we were actually in the desert itself without any problem. And 3 of them, is that right? Yeah, two of them were on the Amazon expedition as well, and they were still using the same filter there. So yeah, decide what's suitable, where you're going to use it, and make your choice.